Hello and welcome to episode 189 of the rather fabulous The Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking from indie film to studio films and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to F it up, in a very, very humble opinion. I'm Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, director, and a producer.
I'm Robbie McCain, director-producer.
And welcome to this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. And we have an absolute treat for you today, don't we, Robbie?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a proper British indie film.
It is absolutely good. Robbie's right. We are talking with the fantastic Lucy Brydon. She's a screenwriter and the director of her debut movie, Body of Water, which is out now in cinemas and on digital. Do check it out. It's so brilliant. It really, really is a wonderful film. And we sit and have a chat with Lucy all about making films with body issues. We also talk about making your first short film and how that can be overwhelming, dealing with fear and learning to bluff very well.
We also talk about what development was like for the film, working with Film London and BBC Films, what that whole process is like, feedback, rewrites, industry suggestions, and doing all of that whilst remaining true to your own creative vision and original concept.
Absolutely. And we jump into talking about the funding, the whole process behind that, the hoops she had to go through, and the writing process from everything. She talks about a script mentor, about dealing with notes, rewriting, the reality of a screenplay in front of you and getting it right.
And on top of all of that, we're going to talk about casting, finding the right actors who are going to be prepared to deal with some of the quite difficult issues raised in this film. So finding people with the physical stamina, but also the psychological kind of determination to see it through.
And how for female filmmakers it is slightly different right now. Things are changing, and in a good way. She also gives you some absolutely amazing advice for being a filmmaker. That is all to come on this week's The Filmmakers Podcast. So super excited for you to hear this.
So, Giles, the Dare, DVD sales, how are they doing? You got the figures in front of me?
3,900. I have no idea. All I know is I'm getting some lovely, lovely comments from people.
Oh, wonderful.
On my Twitters, on my Facebook, in my message box. It's been so lovely. You worry so much about a film coming out. It just is panicky, but it's so nice. That people are watching it and people are responding. And like I say, it's not for everyone. It's a gnarly horror film. So you got to be into that. But also, God, it's been really nice to get that sort of feedback. And yeah, it's great to walk into HMV or Zavvi or supermarket of your choice and see it there on the shelf. It's, all that hard work, and there it is.
Yeah, some of those messages on Twitter are really nice. And it must just feel kind of... yeah, it's sort of like the whole grueling process was worth it, almost.
Nearly. You almost want to walk towards the DVD packet and it just sings at you or something. Or goes, congratulations. You did this. But yeah, there's none of that.
That's when you need to get more sleep.
Empty
That's
box.
when the DVD starts singing to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine Dominic, the masked character on the front, just popping his head out, 3D version, and going, "Oh, you come here." That would be great.
And I've seen some rumblings of another film that you're involved with, Giles. I can't describe this any other way. It's post-apocalyptic pigs fighting in the wilderness, and Danny Trejo's in it. What is going on? What is this film?
Yeah. This is called Bullets of Justice, and Julian Kostov is the producer of The Dare. He was kind of involved in it. He knew the guys, and they were struggling to get any sales on it, any distribution, or any decent distribution. So we watched it and said, this is hilarious and funny, and we brought it to the Dare's distribution arm in America, and they loved it, the Horror Collective, and they're releasing it. It is out now in the USA and Canada. It's batshit crazy. It is Danny Trejo. It is people running around after the Third World War, and pigs have taken over, and there's lots of guns and shit and splatter, and it's hilarious and funny and all just what you'd expect from this kind of a movie. Check out the trailer. It's called Bullets of Justice. If you like that kind of movie, very satirical, stupid, fun,
tongue-in-cheek to say the least. Yeah,
it's massively tongue-in-cheek.
It looks absolutely mental.
But it's been really nice to work on the other side of the filmmaking spool, if you like, the actual nuts and bolts of actually getting a film distributing. Thank you. Well, it's film related. So yeah, I find that really interesting that me and Julian now, we sort of understand the sales a lot more than we did before. We understand what it needs to go through, the packaging side, what you have to deliver to get a movie like this out into the world. Especially now we're talking to other territories, the UK, Germany, etc., to push it out even further. It's been really interesting. It's been really fun. So yeah, there's that. And yes, the final week now of Murder Ballads, the wonderful film from Mitchell Holiday and the gang. It finishes its crowdfunding on Thursday, so head to Greenlit. Link is in the show notes, but oh my god, they're so close. I think it's 85% now, so really help if you can, even if it's a tenner, whatever it is, but this film is going to be brilliant. They're so close to the 100% mark, so do help if you can. Link to that is in the show notes. It's called Murder Ballads. Right. What are we saying, Robbie?
Oh, we better get to your chat with Lucy Brydon.
We really had. And remember, if you do like this, then go onto iTunes and give us a lovely 5-star review and rate this and tell all your friends. It means the world to us to get it out there. Right, Lucy Brydon and myself. Enjoy, you lovely filmmakers.
Absolutely. Enjoy.
Enjoy. I said it last.
Show off.
Some of you might remember Stephanie. She was last with us 5 years ago.
Get me a copy of your eating plan.
So good to see you. Mom, will you speak to her for me?
You've got to try a bit.
Why has it got to be my problem?
Because you're her daughter. That's a precious thing.
7 months I was there. Didn't think about coming to see me.
You must be strong.
I'm tired of being strong. I'd rather be the sick one, because then at least I'd know where I am.
You know this is going nowhere but down.
You're not fit to be a parent. Do you want to end up like her?
No!
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us on the Filmmakers Podcast. It's an absolute delight. We're both in the middle of press at the moment, which is really interesting. How's it for you in the middle of Body of the Water press?
Yeah, it's been quite intensive, but it's such a nice part of the process after having worked on something for a long time, and I'm enjoying the ride anyway. How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm enjoying the ride. It's kind of weird because we shot The Dare 4 years ago and I've had movies out in between. Yeah. And to suddenly now be going, oh, we're talking about this now. Okay, great. And really, like I said, I've been doing this podcast for 3.5 years. So suddenly, and the whole time I've been talking about The Dare as one of my films, and now to have it out is surreal and massively anticlimactic. And, because it is a little bit anticlimactic when you have a movie out. I don't know how you feel. It's kind of, especially not being able to have a premiere at the moment.
Yeah,
right?
Sort of first screening we had was it was at the Glasgow Film Festival, so that was where we first presented the film. So that was a nice kind of, launch. But yeah, there was this period where we weren't really sure what was going to happen with this release, and so yeah, we weren't even sure if it was going to be in cinemas or if it was just going to be on demand. And I think from my friends that have had things go straight to on demand only, like it has been a bit like, okay, so now I have a film out. That's just how it goes, I suppose. And, I guess the advantage is that, people are probably, engaging with more content at the moment anyway. So
I think that's a huge thing. Like you say, more people are putting eyeballs on movies that are online at the moment.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I
know it did, because it came out in March, and so it did much better than people were expecting, and we're doing really well, and everyone's happy, and you kind of go, oh, so there is massive positives from it. I think for me, it's that whole thing of bringing all your cast and crew back together, right? To celebrate together, even though it can be so nerve-wracking for us, right? Yeah,
completely. And I think a lot of people involved in Body of Water were quite, invested, because it was, it's a tough subject. So I mean, a lot of them had some sort of connection or knew someone that had like some sort of eating issue, or like it was something that was close to a lot of the people working on it. And so, yeah, to then present it to them, it's obviously it's a bit nail biting, because crew work on film, really work really hard, and then they just kind of let it go, and then they don't, the films obviously shift massively after the shoot from script to the edit, and then so yeah, they don't know what they're coming back to. But I did have a really nice conversation with the sound recordist Aris, who came to Glasgow for the opener, and he was so happy with the finished film, and he was so complimentary, and it was just really nice, because he's not a gushy person by any stretch of the imagination. So it's like it really meant a lot coming from Aris that he was so impressed with the film. I was like, okay, I've never seen you so like upbeat in the entire time we worked together on the film.
Isn't that amazing though, that you can get that feedback, and especially with a film like Body of Water, which is incredible and important. And I think that's really, really what this is about. We're trying to make films that mean something. And as much as, I've made horror films and action history, I've tried to make it have meaning in there, with bullying and with what we should and shouldn't do as people, and even a bit of veganism in there. But with Body of Water, you've really, hit on a subject that is massively important, and, eating disorders. And you've done it in such a subtle, clever way that isn't in your face and isn't, we shouldn't be like this, or we should judge in this way. It's just real people trying to deal with these issues. And it's honestly, it's a beautiful film. It's beautifully made. And I can't believe it's your debut. I mean, it's, technically it's your debut, right?
It was done through the Film London microwave program, and that's always for debut filmmakers. So, it's tough material, but I think, they were really supportive in terms of just taking risks with it. In terms of the shooting style, as you said, it was a conscious choice all along not to kind of do, really handheld or really in Stephanie's face or anything like that. It was always about being kind of giving her space and letting her character unfold, rather than kind of, doing anything to kind of necessarily. I guess it's a conversation about kind of glamorizing or fetishizing that kind of physicality, which can be troublesome in and of itself. Obviously young girls watch films about eating disorders, and I know at impressionable ages they will get really fixated on these films, to the bone. I know a lot of girls watched over and over again because the Lily Collins character in that is so pretty, and it's that delicate flower thing, and they found it kind of inspirational. So yeah, I didn't, that's not what this film is about. So yeah, it was, but we worked really hard to kind of make it this sort of respectful visual language for her. It being a conscious choice that I developed with the cinematographer that, frames her in a respectful way and keeps her at a distance and doesn't glamorize or fetishize her, her physicality, because it can be quite dangerous. And that's obviously not the point of the film, to say, oh, doesn't this look great and beautiful? Because obviously that's completely not the point of the film. I think that's one thing that's successful about it, is that we managed to keep it quite detached. But I think sometimes that makes some of the scenes, for example, with the eating and things, I know that makes it quite uncomfortable because they're really long, still takes of these actions. But I think it's quite effective. I hope it's effective.
I think it's massively effective, and it's such a great choice to do that. You could have gone so many different ways, and I loved what you did. I loved that you held the camera like that. I thought it was beautiful. It makes us think. We don't have to think by the camera or editing choices of snappy stuff and close-ups of food and all this kind of stuff, and you could have done that. And I thought it was just marvellous to just sit and for us to think about this and us to go, oh my God, okay, this works so much better. It's more powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, very well done. So I'm going to dive in more about Body of Water. I'd like to jump back a little bit to find out how you actually got to that position. It's your debut movie. Had you always liked films? Was there a film that inspired inspired you as a kid to want to become a filmmaker?
I mean, I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and we had all our VHS library at home, and actually I grew up on a diet of pretty much like Police Academy movies. But then I think in my late teens I got really interested in kind of sort of more art house films and
RoboCop style and Police Academy and all that kind of movies. Fatal Attraction. They're just brilliant movies.
The classics,
Classics, yeah.
And the thing about those films now, I think in terms of like, young people's viewing experiences, because they're just so saturated with content now. But those films when I was a teenager and stuff, they really like stayed with me, because obviously there was just less stuff and you would watch things over and over again that you liked. I went to university, I did a creative writing degree, and I did some film studies there, and I got really into it. And that again was like sparked more of an interest. But then after that, I moved to China when I was 21, and I sort of did a few things here and there, and taught English as a foreign language, which I wasn't very good at. I started working in film production, and then my employers realized that I could write, because obviously I'd done this creative writing degree, and then I started doing scripts for them. But at the same time, I was also doing getting more active in this little film community in Shanghai, and I started to sort of direct little shorts.
Why did you want to do that in the first place? What was it when you were obviously after uni and you'd gone to Shanghai and you're there, sort of thinking, okay, well, I'm teaching English, but I want to create stuff. And you started, how did you get involved in that? What was it in you that went, I've got to do something else. I want to create, I want to make stuff.
I mean, I guess I always knew that I was fundamentally not someone that just wanted to sit and interpret other people's things or write about other people's work. Like, I knew I probably wasn't a journalist type thing, that's fine. But I'm a very creative person. I can't I just find it like therapy, really, to make things, write things, whatever. Usually it was writing. And then I just realized through writing and having other people direct stuff I'd written that I would really like to think about all the other elements involved in making films, obviously, like costume, music, all that kind of stuff. It's super fun and cool. And you get to work with all these great people, and they bring all their skills. So it's really great, when you have a great team around you. So I think you've got to be a bit addicted to it to kind of pursue it for so long, because often it doesn't give you that much back for a while, or people ask you to do things for free all the time and all that kind of thing. So, you've got to be quite dogmatic. And
I totally agree. It has to be an obsession.
As long as there's something in yourself that is, different, or you offer something that, is special. And I think everyone who does this kind of has to think that about themselves, because otherwise, it would just be a massive exercise in masochism. It's a funny business.
It really is. So you want to create. And did you just go knocking on doors as well to get those jobs to make shorts and start in that world?
It was such a small community in Shanghai that I just sort of got to know people, and then I got asked to write things, and and I was only 23, 24. But then around that age I decided to leave, and I went to Berlin for a bit, and then I went to film school in New York. I went to Columbia. But I only stayed for a year because it was really it was too much. Costs were crazy, and I had some funding support and things, but it wasn't really enough. And it was just I don't know, film school's weird. It's pros and cons, as with anything. It's good for the network, and obviously it's a really well-regarded program, that one, but it's just there's a lot of really wealthy kids whose parents are just writing them blank checks to make their little shorts, and I just wasn't like that. So it was okay. And I am a believer that if you have constraints, especially in terms of budget, whatever, that can actually open up a whole different creative way of thinking, and sometimes that's a really cool thing. But it is a challenge. But so I stayed for a year at film school, and then I moved back to the UK, and I was just I made some shorts, and they got bigger and more elaborate, and I think I sort of started to tap into the themes that I keep coming back to, and it's usually stuff about the body and female sort of sexuality and identity and things like that. So I think there's quite a lot of that in Body of Water. It's not obviously all explicit, But
that's fascinating. What was it? Can you remember your first short? Can you remember directing your first short and how that felt? Because obviously you're directing actors for the first time, you're casting them, you're bringing them in. What went through your mind? Had you planned it to an inch of its life with shot lists? And
I remember I actually acted in my first sort of fairly elaborate short, and this was shot in Shanghai, and it was all set in one cafe, but it was quite a lot going on. I was so nervous. I think that was the thing, that because I, as a person that approaches things usually, initially my instinct is writing, and that's in a very controlled environment, and I can, do it when I want, and I can, it's just, and then but then to go into, being basically, in charge of all these people and everyone's asking you questions all the time. Like that really messed with my head, actually. I was really like, it's really overwhelming. So I do still find the actual shooting process quite stressful. Some people really thrive on it, but I find it quite stressful. I love writing and I love editing. But like actual shooting stuff, I love it as well, but it's just so intense that,
can you describe for our listeners what that intensity is like? Because I've tried. It's difficult because it is intense. Everything's on your shoulders. Everything's with your vision, and everyone is literally going red or blue. What do you want? Can you talk through that, and how did you deal with it, even though you found it difficult?
I think, it's like anything, you just sort of have to rise to the occasion. And I think I was a little bit of a rabbit in the headlights the first time, because obviously, you're basically, when you're directing something, you're the person that everyone wants the opinion of, and you've got to make decisions really fast, and it's really in your face. And you don't have a lot of time to like consider stuff. So it's got to be quite instinctual a lot of the time. And it's you never have enough time. You never have everything completely perfect, but it's like, the process of all these people coming together and everyone's always trying their best. That's the thing I love about films. Like usually, on a set, everyone's like, it's like a fight, it's like a war, because everyone's like got that sort of same mentality. Like, we will get this done, but you're like the leader. And so if you don't know what you want, or you stumble, like it kind of throws people off. So you've just got to there is an element, I think, of bluffing, of learning how to bluff well, that I definitely learned from my feature, because sometimes you're just like, I don't fucking know, but I'm gonna just have to give you a really good answer and really believe in it myself, and then hopefully that will work, and it usually does. But it's like
totally. So when people ask me questions like that, I make a decision on the spot, whether it's right or wrong. If they say red or blue, whatever it is, this location, that location, I go that location. I make the decision, proud, bold, that one in my instincts. And it's okay to then change my mind later. I think the worst thing you can do is dither and go, oh, I'm not sure. What do you think? Because that doesn't give them any confidence. So that's the way I do it. And I go, that one. And then I think about it. I go, no, do you know what? I've changed my mind. And that's cool. People accept that. But it's so hard when that first moment of realizing you're the leader. You have to literally put your metaphysical arm around everyone and make them feel okay. And you're like, what about me?
I know.
But fuck you. You're directing it. So you can't get on with it.
I know.
You wrote it. Deal with it. Because on shorts, you can drive through it and get through a short, because it's often 2-3 days. If you're lucky, it might be 1 day. So you just sort of pile through it and everyone works together. On a feature, it's a different beast. It's a long time when you're knackered and you've got to constantly be, preparing that boat to sail, all the time. How was your mindset during that? How did you cope with that? Sleeping, preparing, all that kind of stuff.
It takes over your life for weeks, and that's fine. There's a lot happens in a day, because it's such long, intense days. And when I think back to it, it's like, God, you do so much in one day, but it's just that's just how it rolls. But it doesn't give you much time to kind of absorb and deal or decompress information. So you're just kind of taking it all with you. So then by the end, it's like, everyone's just like, I remember vividly after the shoot of Body of Water, I went home and I lay in a bath and my legs were so sore, because obviously standing around all the time. Mm-hmm. And you're running around. And I just remember sitting in the bath with like a glass of red wine, and I was like, it was like I was like in a padded cell or something. It was just like staring into space, like with my brain completely ransacked of any kind of articulate thought or anything. I was so spent, and it took me like a good week to physically feel like, because it's so draining. And it's like, I know that's probably, maybe it's because also it's an indie movie and it's a bit more hardcore in terms of like, it's not super plush. Like, I think that's the thing that I wasn't quite prepared for, how incredibly exhausted I would be at the end of it. But, that said, we had we shot over 3 weeks, and we did manage to, we split it into, I think we did like 5 days on and then 2 days off. And having two days off was really good, because sometimes they just give you 1 day off between shooting weeks, and it's
not enough. It's not enough. You need 2 days.
A day to just like, chill. And then you have to like, and as a director or whatever, or any of the heads of department, like you don't really get a break. You're always like working on these days off, but at least, it's a bit more relatively chilled.
When I was acting back in the day, I didn't realise how much crews put in, the effort and the time. And as soon as you do the other side, you go, you don't get a break. No one comes over with a towel. No one comes over to make you feel cozy and go, hey, do you want a drink? Okay, they do. But I mean, it's definitely a different feel. And when you direct, you don't get a second to stop, because as soon as you finish that scene, the actor goes, okay, cool, give me a minute. Let me prepare the other scene. You have to go straight into that next scene. You have to know where the camera's going to go. You have to set it up, think about all that stuff. So your brain doesn't actually stop. So it makes total sense when we finish the shoot that we just collapse. We are giddy we actually can't form sentences. We can't do anything. And hopefully our family are okay with that. But if you've got kids or whatever, then, the person at home with the kids suddenly just goes, no, you've been away for 4 weeks or whatever, how long. Here are the kids. Deal with that. And you're going, there. So, Body of Water, it's about a woman with an eating disorder, and she tries to balance her relationship with her mother and her teenage daughter. The trailer's amazing. Honestly, go see this film. It's so cool. It's so, so cool. So let's jump into how Body of Water came about. Because like I say, you'd made some shorts. You'd done that work. How did you even get the BBC involved? How did it get that far so you could, make the feature film that you had written? Where did the idea come from, I suppose, in that sense? And then how did you develop that into actually getting people to fund you?
I had sort of been really interested in writing about a character that had anorexia, just because like I had various, food issues as mostly actually in my 20s. I developed anorexia, and I it wasn't to the extent that the character does, but it was something that really like overshadowed a lot of that kind of decade of my life. I'm 36 now. So it was something that I was like, okay, this is like, a really intense thing that I've been through, but I didn't want to write about my own experience particularly. So it was like, so that was a sort of starting point. And then I wrote a short that, got some interest and funding, and we went to present it in Clermont-Ferrand market. And so It did start life as a short. So we were all set to kind of make the short, but then because, I just, I always loved to write, and I just sort of as an exercise written a screenplay really for myself, and had actually developed it through this lab in Edinburgh, in the Edinburgh Film Festival called Network.
Network, yeah.
It had a bit of mentoring, and then me and the producer decided, we'll put it into the Film London applications for their feature program Microwave, and if it gets in, great, and if it doesn't, then we can go and make the short version, and it's all good. So we got in, and then
congrats.
How it works with that is it's like they select 12 projects initially. They give you a sort of boot camp training week, which was really great. Like we met some really great mentors. Like we had Lynn Ramsey and Jim Wilson, who worked with Jonathan Glazer a lot, and like some really high caliber people, and they were really inspiring. And actually Lynn, she, I love Lynn, and she just sort of pointed me at some really interesting references, like Safe by Todd Haynes, which ended up being quite a really useful reference for later on. And I hadn't seen that film, but that definitely, inspired like a lot of like the thinking some of the thinking processes I went through in sort of imagining the film. So we did that, and then after that, you kind of had to present the film again to this panel of execs, people who were involved in funding. So it was BBC, BFI, and again Film London, and then they whittled the projects down to 6 projects, and then they developed them for a bit longer, and then you had to basically go back and present the script and repitch it again. And yeah, we got commissioned along with another film called Looted, which is actually just coming out about a month after Body of Water. And then after that we developed, I worked on the script a lot with Angela McFarlane, who's the script editor. She's also she was one of the execs at Film London. I think she's moved on now, but and then it was quite a lot of there was a lot of work on the script, and as a first time feature maker, it's scary, and there's a lot of you don't know what you're doing, or you feel like you don't know what you're doing, and then you get notes, and like sometimes that can be quite digesting those and implementing them and finding what's useful in them can be quite a process in and of itself. I think now I'm a lot more like, I definitely will go into my next projects like, oh yeah, okay, I know what I want out of this. But when I had not done a feature, obviously I kind of over listened to a lot of the criticisms or the feedback. And so it's like, but you can't like write a script to please people or by committee. So there were drafts though that definitely went through a bit more of a people pleasy kind of thread.
Well, it's easy to do, isn't it? When people are coming with ideas and you go, oh gosh, yes, because they've made films and you trust in them, and then you go down a route and you go, well, oh shit, how do I pull it back? It's really difficult to balance that period when you're sort of development of a script, what works, what doesn't. You don't know, and you don't know, you kind of think it works. It's really, I find that really difficult too, and choosing whose opinion to choose. But when you're in a situation where it's, you're there with a funding body and they're saying do this, well, of course you're going to do it, but actually it might not go down the right route for what you want, and that can take a lot of time. How do you find rewriting then? Because it can be very difficult to dive back into something and pull it apart. I'm
really open to ideas and rewriting, but I did get quite exhausted with that side of the process as well, because it was like, I felt like sometimes in late development, I felt like I was just changing things for the sake of it. And then I would get frustrated because I would go back to earlier ideas that had been, and sometimes I think you have to work. There's, what often happens is you have the script, and then you go to all the different places you could possibly go. And often you end up quite similarly what you started with, because it just is as though your imagination has to go on that kind of journey, or other people have to go on that journey with you to make sure that you've exhausted all the possible things. But then, often your early instincts are kind of right. And I always knew about this story that like it was about a woman who just, she was sort of giving up. And that to me was like actually a really important experience. And but I know that there was a bit of sort of hesitance around some of the presentation of anorexia at all, because it was a really challenging thing to sort of sell.
Yes. Yeah,
and also like, cause we all were fully aware all the way along, like what that would involve an actor having to do. The ethics of that as well. And I had to often like kind of, explain how we would like look after this person, or how we would present the subject. There was all this stuff going into it at the same time as trying to just write a good story. So it's like there were times when it was like, oh my goodness.
Was there times when you thought, oh, I'm going down such a wrong path here, or this might not get made, and you'd spent a long time doing it at this point?
I never let myself think that it wouldn't get made, because I think that would have broken me, because I had invested so much into it. Now, having made a film, on the other side of it, I'm like constantly amazed that anyone actually manages to do it, because
I agree. Yep.
It's nuts. And nobody, like, you're like, if you don't have any experience in the film industry, you're like, oh yeah, it's so easy. Just get some money and then people show up, and, and it's all
point
lovely.
the camera that way, and that way, and the actors do the whole thing in one one take.
my
Yeah,
God.
brilliant.
I know. But it's like, the reality is there's so much that can go wrong, and there's so many shoots that like do get pulled, or like, especially this year, obviously. Like, I've been thinking, if we'd been trying to shoot that this year, it would have been completely messed up, because we couldn't have adhered to any of the kind of restrictions or any of the social distance. It would have just been a complete disaster. And like, imagine investing years of your life developing a project, and you basically have one shot at doing it because it's not a Hollywood mega blockbuster. So, and then that's it, because of this, like, because of the world, it's a terrifying thought, but that's the reality for a lot of people. And we were just fortunate that we got it in when we shot it when we did. But there were a lot of times that it looked like dicey, and there was the stuff with financing that was had to be resolved really late in the day, down to the wire, and I wasn't I wasn't sleeping about that, and then I wasn't sleeping about various other things. So it's like, just for a really, for a small independent film, it's a big investment of your life to making it happen. And so I couldn't, I think it's just like, I just had to have that mindset that this will happen. So any deviation from this happening I'm just not even going to compute that, because I can't allow myself to go there mentally, because otherwise I would probably just give up.
And I think a lot of filmmakers, directors, screenwriters do that. They get to a point where they do hit the brick walls.
Yeah.
And if you're not powerful enough with that, and I mean that in the nicest way, and if you don't think this is going to get made like you have, and have that burning passion, of course it can fall down, because the people around you have other jobs. They have other films they've got going as well. They're developing other things. So if you're not fully driving that, they're not either. But if you're knocking on the door going, here's a new script, how about this, how about that, it's going to be on their mind, because they like it and they like you, and they've developed their time and investment in it. But if you backed off for a second and just went, oh God, yeah, this is too much, I'll come back to this in a month or 2 months, I'm going to go work for a bit, do something else, they're going to lose interest. You're going to find it really hard to pick it back up. They're doing another film. So you do honestly have to be on it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you did that really well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on the screenwriting again a tiny bit more, in terms of how do you actually, when you started to write this, do you like to have full notes written down? Do you write off the cuff? Do you have scenes already in your mind? I know you made a short first, so that would have helped, but it'd be really interesting to know your process as a screenwriter. Yeah,
it started off as a short, and that was the sort of genesis of the central kind of conflict in the film, which was very much about this mother who is anorexic, and she was trying to take, she was taking care of her daughter, and her daughter had baked her cake for her birthday and she couldn't eat it. So that was the short. So that kind of, that kind of encapsulates a lot of the central stuff in what is now the feature. I went through so many drafts of the story, and thinking back to it, initially I think it was a bit more horror driven. Like, there was more body horror kind of elements in it, I would say. And then it was working with Anjali. I think it made me a lot better. Obviously, going through this process, and any creative project makes you better, or at least sort of reaffirms like certain things about how you approach things. But I think before I had made this, and before I had worked with a script editor, I was quite like, oh, I'm just gonna write, and I'm gonna write out this idea, and I'm not gonna like really beat sheet it or do like exhaustive treatments, because it's not like I found that boring, but I just sometimes find it quite freeing to just, I came at it from more of a fiction writer's angle, like I just want to see where this goes. But yeah, obviously that sometimes doesn't work in screenwriting, to just sort of see where things go. But yeah, what I now find really useful is, and I make myself do, and I think is a good discipline, is just, really actually getting out all the problems getting out a really good treatment, and then the writing should just flow really fast after that, because I don't find it difficult to write. I'm a fast writer, but it's just making sure that it's the most effective, all the scenes are really effective and punchy and have as much in them as they possibly can, because you actually end up saving yourself loads of time if you work all that stuff out in the treatment.
I like to work that way as well.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I think a lot of people would rather just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to loftily sit down and pen my masterpiece, but it's just, unfortunately, yeah.
I tried that at first. That was my initial, like, however many years ago, was like, yeah, you'll be fine. Just, there's an idea in your head. But I got to page 70 and got lost. I was like, oh, I haven't even got to the second act. I'm all over the place. And then I just lost interest because it was so hard to pull that back or know what to do. And so I totally now agree that putting a treatment together really solid, and then as long as you can with even bits of a scriptment in there with dialogue and stuff, anything to make it easier for you when you write, you don't get stuck. I also like to write with other people because I prefer it. I much prefer doing that. Yeah, I like the back and forth of it all and not feeling the pressure on my own. I like to do that with other people, push the pressure back on them and they push it on me, and it's a much better way of working for me. So what was the moment like when you found out BFI, BBC Films and Film London with the microwave scheme have said yes, they've given you the green light? Can you remember that moment?
I can,
or was it a long process?
It was actually, do you know, it was so weird because there were 6 projects, and we all had to go pitch. And then, so they decided on, I was waiting for the phone call from Dan, the producer.
Dan Cleland, yeah.
Yeah, Dan Cleland, yeah. He called me and he was like, I've got some news. And I was like, oh, right, that's obviously not good. And then he's like, well, they've selected one project, but they've got the second spot is between us and this other film. So we've got to go back and do another document. And I was like, I was so pissed off. I was like, do you want my blood? Like, what are you doing to me? And it was like, I can't remember what exactly we had to be really clear about, but there were, they needed some more reassurance. I think it was a bit more about about the Stephanie's character and that presentation stuff. So had to go and do that. And then did you do a rip reel? Did you do visions? And did you give them like loads of photos of how you think it would look? Did you do all that? I did do a lookbook kind of thing. I didn't do a reel, but which was really helpful because I was able to kind of show references like Jean Dielman and these kind of older European films that use a lot of long takes and all that kind of stuff that I've used in Body of Water. But I couldn't believe that they'd asked us for another bloody piece of paper. I was like really ready to just like throw my phone out the window. But anyway, I did. Julie did it, and then they said, I actually feel really sorry for the people that didn't get it, because I would have been
because they did that.
Pissed off you. Yeah, they went through all that and then they didn't get it. I would have been so annoyed. Yeah, and then we celebrated and we had prosecco and that was lovely. And then it was like, okay, cool. But at the same time,
now you're like, shit. Now I've got to do it.
And the thing is, it's not the same as like iFeatures. Like they don't just give you all the budget. You have to actually raise some yourself as well. Or you
How much percentage is it at the moment, or was it?
They gave us 2/3, and then you can raise another third if you want.
So if it's 150 grand budget, let's say they give you 100 grand ish, and you have to raise the other 50 ish. Yeah. Okay, fine. So how did you go about raising the other 50? Yeah,
basically we had a lot of conversations with potential production companies who loved the project, but it was also like it's quite a weird amount of money to put into a film. It's not in normal person's terms that's a lot of money, but obviously in a film budget world that is not a lot of money. So tiny. It's a bit of so it was sort of smaller ambitious production companies that we were talking to, and we had a really long conversation with one. And then at the sort of last hour, like just when we were kind of really needing to get the money together, they couldn't make it happen, and we were like, fuck. So we did get on board with Boudica and Who Are Lovely and Bright Shadow Films quite late in the day, but it worked out. But like that's what I mean about like it's just really nervous breakdown inducing, like that stuff. And I had never been through anything like that before, and it just felt like, because we couldn't also move our shoot dates. Like obviously in some scenarios, if there's money issues or whatever, you can move the shoot, but because Shan had been doing her training and prep and stuff to change physically for the role, like we were really locked into the dates for shooting, so we had to get everything together by then, and it was just really gnarly. It was a lot of pressure.
Oh my god, especially because absolutely at that point you think, is this going to fall apart? You know, you've got Shine there working out and doing a thing, and you've got your mentally. I remember this on the Dare as well. I didn't have the green light for so long that they'd kind of said yes, very similar situation, but you were just waiting for that green light, which was a studio space. And all that time I'm prepping, but there's a bit in the back of my mind that's going, is this a waste of my time? Is this really going to happen? Am I doing all this for nothing?
Completely.
And you must have been the same. Yeah.
And you just got to kind of proceed as though everything's going to work out. But, you know, as we were saying, these things can fold, and it happens a lot. And nobody actually talks about that. But because you only ever see a film when it's finished. But it's like, you know, the amount of horror stories about stuff that just gets pulled or whatever. It's like, and you're like, oh my God, that could actually have been my project if X, Y, and Z hadn't come together at a certain point. And it's a lot of, like, as we said, winging it, really.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. It's such a crazy
business. It really
business.
is. It is, but it's also testament to you, the fact that you obviously could pitch well, and you obviously did have a brilliant vision. That even though you then had BBC and BFI and, you know, Film London part of it, it made it easier sell. But the fact is, they still invested in you. I always say this to filmmakers. It doesn't matter necessarily how brilliant your script is or of course it wants to be, but they're investing in you as a person.
Yeah.
And if you're cool, if you're all right, you have a vision and you have a real sense of how you can make films, and they see a future with you, I think that's a huge part of it. I really do. You can't be in there mumbling and going, well, yeah, I just want to make a film and I'm a genius. And you do have to be personable and have a vision, be strong. And it sounds like you absolutely did that. And wow, well done. That's, my heart's in my mouth even thinking about that last minute stuff. Amazing.
I know.
Well, let's talk about casting then, because you mentioned Sian Brooke, who played Stephanie, your lead. You've got Amanda Burton, who obviously is a wonderful star anyway, you know, from Silent Winds. But then you had the wonderful Fabienne Paolini Castle, if I pronounced that correct.
Paolini Castle,
I mean, what a three wonderful leads you had. I mean, fair play. So how did you cast that? And also you've got to cast people, like you mentioned with Sian, who has to look anorexic. She has to look skinny. So talk us through that.
Yeah, obviously that was a massive challenge for any casting director, and you know, it did make the role quite, again, for her. Our casting director was Aisha Bywater. She's fantastic.
She is. She did Last Days on Mars, Perfect Sense, Startup, which is amazing. Yeah, she's cool.
She's very cool lady, and she's very you know, no nonsense. And I really like that, especially with people working in the film industry. So it was like, and she, you know, obviously Sian's character, Stephanie, is the sort of center heartbeat of the story. So, you know, obviously we started with her, but that was, as I mentioned, like the toughest role, I think, to go out, you know, and say to agents and stuff, like, this role is this character and she's going to have to look this way and this and that. So, you know, there was a lot of interest, but it was just also like, I think it's quite a scary proposition for an actor, you know, having to do that. And so you had to really have balls to like want to get on board with it, which kind of sorted the wheat from the chaff fairly easily. And I actually didn't meet that many actresses for it, but I had a couple of Skype chats with Sian, and I just, you know, I was sort of like, it was a bit like love at first sight, you know, in a way, because, and I think it's kind of got to be like that when you're casting for all your roles. I was like, yes, she's perfect. She was so cool also as a person, but also just really wanted to do the character justice, asked so many intelligent questions about like where this character had come from, her experiences, and really enriched her in that sense. And we had loads and loads of really good chats about that stuff, and did a lot of research together about being a war photographer as well, although that doesn't actually come out too much in the final film, but that is obviously a big part of Stephanie's backstory. And so yeah, Sian, and I remember her saying in Glasgow when we did a Q&A, she said, you know, she was actually kind of scared of reading the script because she knew what would be involved if she liked it. And so, but she read it and she really loved it. So it was like, oh fuck. But, which is really funny. I just never thought about it like that. But I just feel really lucky that we found someone that was as committed as she is, and she really made the role her own. And All the things like, the haircut that's very specific. And, she has a little, I don't know if you never see it, we maybe get a flash of it in one scene, but she's got a little, tattoo she just really wanted for the character. And so she was obviously the main starting point. And then we saw a lot of girls for the Pearl role. Obviously, that's quite a big kind of catchment for, younger actresses. And
she's about 16, right, in the film?
Yeah. And Fab stood out because she's got a kind of toughness to her that I really like. And she's quite... there was a bit of there's a sort of resistance that Pearl needed to have towards her mother. I feel like Fab is, she's sort of physically strong and, has a real presence that I think, is playing interestingly against Stephanie, who's obviously physically, in a sense, weakened. And, so yeah, and then we did some chemistry tests with Shan and a couple of these actresses, and then just felt like Fab was the right choice. But that was quite a big conversation, and a lot of the execs were involved in that one. And then Amanda, again, I have to say that was really easy because I knew Amanda. I knew Shan beforehand as well, but everyone knows Amanda, and it was like, oh, I was so excited that she was interested, and I hadn't seen her in anything for a while because she sort of stopped acting for a bit, and then she showed up and she just was so good, and also just like I just could so easily see her as this kind of matriarch of these, and like how they would all bounce off each other. And yeah, it was just like, oh yes, it must be Amanda.
She was so real with that performance. Even though she was the matriarch, she was also wounded, and she's getting married to another woman in the film, and that whole pressure from her and the balance of that, it's almost like, yes, well, you've got problems, but what about my problems? But I'm not going to tell you about them. And that was wonderful. It was also under said, and there's a lovely moment at the wedding itself that comes out the blue, but you go, I totally get why that's happening. It's really, really fascinating. So yeah, the cast were incredible. Was there any kickback at all from the BBC to say, hey, can we get a bigger names? Because like I say, these are wonderful actors, but in terms of they're trying to sell a movie, it's always the same.
No, they didn't. I mean, I think they recognised that. Obviously, because we didn't have a massive budget as well, like it wasn't like people were doing this to go and retire in the Bahamas. So it was like,
never. I don't know if it ever happens.
Well, yeah, especially independent filmmaking. But yes, they certainly weren't doing it for the dollar. So it was like, I think again, with most of the cast, they had some sort of level of experience or connection with someone that had gone through something like this or something. There tended to be that thread. But the BBC they never made any issue about that. They did have kind of final say, they could, if they had objected, they could have said something. But no, I think the cast did us really proud.
Oh, they're amazing. Honestly, it's such a wonderful cast. It's so good. They draw you in with their silences and their looks and their feeling, and it's just great. You must have been over the moon. And looking at that then, in terms of going back to one set and being with these actors and playing in that moment, what was going through your mind in those times of thinking about the arcs and thinking about the story, but also thinking about the shot, the film as a whole? Because how do you like to play each day? Would you kind of just go, I've got to get, right, let me just concentrate on this day and work through the problems of today? Because, how do you like to work those moments on set? I do like to sort of be, have a good plan, and I will always make the effort to meet up with the cinematographer early, and we'll talk through everything and spend a bit of time when it's quiet. And he was amazing at that. And so we would always have our, little plan between us of, and also like, what are we going to do if it all goes tits up, which it obviously does sometimes. So I am quite fluid. And also, especially with this kind of material, you want to give the actors the time to try different things in their performances as much as possible. Where there's a few scenes that obviously I wish we could have spent a bit more time on, but we just didn't have it. So it was a case of, we just need to get this and move on. But I think sometimes like the kind of chaos and stress of that could actually help translate into the
into the final performances. But I know that sometimes that was a bit stressful for the cast. Like there was one particular scene, in the eating disorder group, the final scene with Shan, like we were really running out of time, and we just didn't, we couldn't get all the angles we wanted. But for some reason in the edit, it actually kind of works because it was actually quite a labor of love, that scene, because of like the lack of footage. Yeah, we made it work, and you wouldn't know that wasn't part of the grand scheme of how it's supposed to look, but that was a really challenging day, because it was about, Shan had obviously put so much into it, like all the training, and it had taken over her life in a way. But I just wanted to give her the time on camera that she, as much time on camera as possible. So that was always a battle. But you're always like, you always have to sort of trade something off in a sense, because it's like, unless you've got like, a huge multi-million-dollar budget and you can spend loads of time on things, it's just,
and reshoots and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, here you go. We've got what we've got. And actually, you're saying that about the edit. Sometimes, even though, and this has happened to me, you think, oh God, this scene's never going to work. We aren't going to have to put it together. I didn't have enough coverage because of, whatever it is. But actually you come to the edit and you go, oh, we can make that work with just that wide. If we want to do that route, and actually sometimes it does, or just a single on that person because the other people in the scene aren't important. Yeah, I suppose it's sometimes in the shoot choosing what's more important and going, well, that's more important, let's get that. But sometimes you can find stuff in the edit you didn't even know was there.
I know, that's the kind of film, the magic of post-production as well. It's like, oh yeah, so I've got this stuff, and then there's that really helpful David Lynch quote that's something like, and he goes into an edit, he's like, I'm just going to pretend that I don't have a clue about what all this stuff is, and then I'm going to just piece it together as though some other guy shot it, and then I'm just trying to find. And it's just quite a helpful way of looking at it, because it's like, you do, if you kind of let yourself be a bit free in that part of the process, when you've got all the material, it is actually really liberating, and there's so much more you can do than if you're trying to like, oh, I must keep that line and I must keep that, and it's just like, actually, yeah,
that's so important. And I love that phrase. That's really good. Let someone else think that they directed it, so therefore you can be free to do what you want, because you can get hung up on shots. It was pissing it down with rain that day, and there was a problem with whatever, and someone got hurt, but you've got the shot and it was amazing and everyone cheered. But actually in the edit, doesn't work at all. And then you're forcing in a scene just because of what you went through, but actually, or a shot, you don't need, no.
Yeah, so you can easily get attached to those kind of stories behind shots rather than the actual story significance
you need to tell. Yeah, that people at home don't care about. They don't care what you went through when you shot it. They don't care if anyone died. They don't give a shit. They want to know about the story and if it works. So yeah, that is fascinating. That whole, how was it? Okay, so you've edited your film now. Obviously, we could go on for days about editing films because we but then in terms of then having to show it back to the powers that be, the BBC and BFI, what was that moment like for you? And did you need their approval to release it? Did you, all that kind of stuff, was that part of it as well?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Yeah, we had to do I think we had 3 sessions of presenting the film to execs, and that would again be BFI people, BBC and Film London. And Film London were obviously more involved in the day-to-day, and they would look at more cuts before we showed them to the lesser like hands-on people at BBC and BFI. So yeah, we had these, we had a first screening in the BFI St Stephen Street, and it's really like, it's scary. Obviously you're like, and it is quite a risky project. It wasn't ever going to be an easy, so it was, and I'm very conscious of that. And I know it's not everyone's type, it's not like anything's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. But I remember being really pumped when we went into that. And actually the reaction was really positive. But they had a lot of really helpful, insightful, because these are people that fucking know what they're talking about in terms of films. Yeah. So you're like, just ways you can frame things. Can you push it this way? Can you draw that out more? And actually a couple of like really helpful, we flipped a couple of the timelines a little bit on some of the scenes as well, and it actually helped make a lot more sense. So it's it's just this magic stuff that happens, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. But it's all sort of in, you know, these conversations in these back rooms in the BFI, and actually, yeah, it was really good. And then the second time, less nerve-wracking because obviously everyone had seen it, and again, very helpful. And then we had the final thing to sign off, and that was the picture done. And then we, you know, were able to move on to sound and all the other post elements. So
amazing. And did you know then that they had a specific release date in mind? So did you know you're working towards, was it very clear?
No, it was a bit it was quite sort of driven by like what festival release we could expect and this and that. And but basically, again, because of the budget and stuff, it was a little bit like it took a while to finish, just because we were working with really awesome people. Like Jodie is a colorist at Technicolor, and Technicolor were fab. Like they did so much for the project, but obviously they're also working on massive pictures. So, you know, they'd done us a sort of really good deal, but it meant that we had to kind of slot in a little bit around their big, you know, which is fine. But it did mean sometimes that we would get not pushed back a bit if a big project came in. So, you know, but they were really generous with their time. And I think that was the thing that someone told me really early on in, you know, when I was actually just still meeting heads of department. They were like, you know, pick your crew as carefully as you pick your cast, because obviously you're in there for the long haul with these people. And actually you can deal with a difficult actor because you're probably not going to be necessarily face to face with them that much. But if, you know, with a cinematographer or whatever, you know, you're spending an awful lot of time with these people. But I was so happy with all of my heads of department, were amazing. So, you know, and that also made it a nice environment to work in, because they all seem to gel really well together as well, which is really good.
I think that's vital, to pick your crew really well, because you're in the trenches with them. Like say your actors, okay, let's hope, God forbid, that you don't have any fallings out or whatever, but your crew, your cinematographer, that's your person. So if there's an issue, that's the first person you speak to in the morning, last person at night. You know, you're going through all your shots and everything, and all your ACs and your focus puller. They're right there with you the whole time. So you want to pick cool people. So when did they start saying, okay, this is going to be the release date? When did you start knowing this is the time to get preparing to press and stuff? Yeah,
I mean, it's been, because this year's obviously just been so crazy for everyone. We did the premiere in Glasgow, and then we were talking to Verve, and then we, you know, went with them, and they're the distributor. And then initially we were talking about September release because of COVID and everyone not really knowing what the fuck was going on. And then it got pushed back a bit, not too much, but yeah, like that, we engaged a press officer only a couple of months ago, I think, really 2 or 3 months ago, and he sort of prepared a plan and you know, got all the ball. He's been amazing as well, actually, I have to say. Got all the ball rolling with that stuff, and it's been, you know, I was pleasantly surprised by the level of interest in it, and a lot in kind of Amanda and Shan mainly, because you know, obviously Amanda's a kind of returning big name, and this is quite a different role for her. And but I've been talking to loads of publications, and it's been as we were saying, it's quite a fast train. You're just going to jump on and hold on by, you know, on your knuckles. But yeah,
totally. And are you still, because it's coming out on 16th of October, is cinemas still happening? Do you know if that's?
Yeah, I mean, unless the government stuff changes between now and, which could happen.
I know, God forbid.
So nuts, isn't it? But yeah, it's on demand and in cinemas. There's definitely some screenings in London, Sheffield, Edinburgh, Cardiff, and Derby, and a bunch of other places. So yeah, all these really nice, and the Home Cinema in Manchester, and there's a lot of really nice independent venues that I love. So I'm really happy about that, and it's just nice that it's going to be on a big screen. And after all this, you know,
you should be so proud, honestly. Like I say, this is an amazing movie. The fact it's your debut movie, the fact that it's, you know, picked up by Verve, the fact that you're getting cinemas even during this time is incredible. You should be immensely proud. I think you're fantastic, and you've done brilliantly, and a director to watch hugely.
Thank you so much.
But honestly, it's really cool. It's really cool, and I love seeing female filmmakers break in like this. It's so cool. It's not easy. It's much harder. female filmmakers.
I hope it's getting better. I mean, I am seeing a lot of like, you know, there's just a bit of a flurry of independent filmmakers breaking through females, but I guess the worry is also like there is a big drop off, you know, normally between people making a first and a second feature. Like a lot of people don't go on to make a second feature, so I just hopefully, you know, I think you just kind of got to, you know, maintain the same kind of tenacity about continuing in this business. But it does feel amazing to have completed a feature film after, you know, because you find yourself talking about these projects for so long, and then everyone's like, and like my parents and stuff have nothing to do, like they don't know the film industry at all. They're both solicitors, and they're just like, when's your film? Like, what's this film that you've been talking about for years? And so now I'm like, actually, Mum, Dad, it's in the Radio Times. Like, it's actually a thing that they can connect with. Yeah,
go to the cinema, tell your friends.
Funny.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. The Dare's 4 years from when I first started, so it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, 6 since I first started writing it. So you just go, oh my god, shut up talking about it. But now it's nice. I can't actually say, you can go watch it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it must feel wonderful for you as well. And you mentioned there about keeping the momentum going. I take it you are already working on the stuff. You're already writing your next one.
Yeah, I've got a couple of feature films in development. One is sort of, you know, drawing on the same things, but perhaps in a bit more of an elaborate scale, and but also
get more budget. Get a
bit more budget. Probably playing a little, like flirting a little bit more with like horror genre and stuff like that. But you know, trying to kind of skewer a lot of different stuff, and then a TV series as well with a producer in Scotland that's we're just taking out to production companies at the moment. So that's really exciting. And yeah, it's just nice to have a few irons in the fire, obviously.
So important.
Yeah.
And finally, then, any advice for filmmakers now, looking back at your younger self, like literally a couple of years ago? What would you give? What would you tell yourself, I suppose? And also, what little bit of advice would help filmmakers wanting to try and make their first feature right now, or their next one?
I guess it's just, you know, keeping your ultimate. It feels so good to be on this side of it that I wish I could just send myself a reassuring hug that it will all work out. And because I always knew that I really needed to tell this story, and that was the real drive for pushing it through, despite all these setbacks and knockbacks, because they happen to everyone. You know, just as long as you believe in your idea, I guess, you know, and you hold it dear and close to yourself, then you will get there. But it might be it is a mountain, and it is even harder now. And I think, you know, I really hope that the film, you know, smaller films are still going to be made in the next few years. But I mean, who knows? But I think it's just a case of, you know, finding something that you really believe in and holding it and really, you know, but just being really tenacious. That's all I can say. Because it is a tough industry, and we all know that, but we love it. We must love it because we stay in it, and we, you know, talk about it a lot. So I hope that's not too rambly, but that's my kind of overarching lift up people that might be, because sometimes you do feel like, you know, jacking it all in. I mean, that's just normal, but it is worth it to get to the other side.
Love that. That's so good and so perfect. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for having
Lucy
me.
Brydon, thank you so much. Body of Water is in cinema 16th of October and on digital. Seek it out. Enjoy this brilliant drama. Support independent filmmakers and support Lucy on her journey. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can people follow you? Because that's how we got in contact. I messaged you on Twitter. I'm come on podcast, you're ace.
I'm on Twitter. It's Lucy _Brydon, and then I'm on Instagram, and there's just the same, I think, Lucy.Brydon. And then the film has its own Instagram account, Body of Water Film. So that's got all the updates. And we also have a website. So if you just Google Body of Water Film website, that should show up, and it'll have all the information about the screenings and so on. But yeah, please do give me and it a follow. And yeah, we can hopefully, it'd be lovely to hear what everyone thinks.
And please do tell Lucy, certainly when you've heard this, send her a message and say, cool, thank you so much for your time, but also when you've seen the film, because it's so nice to get feedback, lovely feedback, obviously. If you don't like it, shut up. And the same with reviews. If you don't like something, shut up, don't be keyboard warriors. Thank you. Brilliant, thank you so much. Remember, everyone, you can go make your indie film just as Lucy has done. Believe in yourself, believe in what you want to make, and go do it. And if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. We will see you next Tuesday. As always, keep making films, keep believing, and go do it. Lucy, thank you.
Thank you so much, Giles. Speak to you soon.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.